All right, we're going to jump back into another critique. First up, we've got Cora. Cora, I see you've brought the sunlight and warmed it up around. This is looking really, really good. Really liking what you've done. So the warmth on the characters, on the figures, really makes it pop from the blue and the green in the background. So the water and the sky. Um, they really pop when you've got warm colors, contrasting. I guess the only comment I'd make is perhaps you could bring down the key light, so the sunlight could probably go down a little bit. I'd say maybe like half a stop, something like that. Let's use the exposure tool. So if you went down, let's see, half a stop, maybe quarter stop. Yeah, maybe a quarter stop down. Um, on the key, it starts to feel not too hot. It's actually really nice that it feels a little bit blown out on the skin there, because it does make it pop. And everything else looks great. I think you're good to go with this one. Thank you. Ruby. So yes, so I see you've done some iterations on this. It's looking, it's looking really good. Um, I see that you've got some more red as a kind of a rim light there, and that's looking great. I would uh, I would suggest maybe bringing down the exposure on the characters. So at the moment, let me just pull up the reference. Let's see. All right, so um, you can see from the reference that the the fill light is really soft and diffuse. Sorry, the key light is really soft and diffuse here. And I'm looking at yours, and I feel like maybe where you, you either need to bring down the exposure on that key, say, let's see, maybe half a stop, maybe half a stop, and if you brought it down by half a stop, and I would maybe put a little bit of a tint onto the key, because I feel like the light's looking a little bit too neutral. And just looking at this reference here, I feel like the light is probably got some sort of gel on it, like a warmish, either like a, something like that, like a yellowish kind of tint on it. So I would encourage you to explore maybe warming up the key light and bringing it down. And I would try and bring down that green background wash on the wall. See how you go about bringing that down by, down to about there, something like that, just so it doesn't compete with, um, the lighting on her. And same with the lighting, the backlighting on the wall there on the bottles as well. If you could generally bring that background wall down by, I'd say half a stop, to even one stop, I feel like it could really help the reading of these characters. I mean, I know that these characters here, or even looking at this bar here, um, it feels like the fall off from the green lights is there's a lot of the fall light's quite swift, and so it falls into darkness quite a bit. Um, yeah, I encourage you to maybe study this section of the bar and see that there is green light, but maybe it sort of recedes a bit more. And in general, the fill in general in the scene needs to come down. I feel like it needs to feel like, it needs to feel like maybe that's going a little bit too far, but something like that, just to um, I guess make it feel like it's this kind of dark and mysterious. There's a kind of mysterious quality about this. Um, sorry, about this light. Um, this these figures here. There's a little bit of red on her, um, and he sort of recedes. I'd like to maybe get some of that quality in your image. Um, yeah, just bring the lights down, bring the house lights down, and especially the background lights here. But otherwise, it's looking really good. Yeah, so this could benefit from maybe bringing down the key that's on her. I'm guessing it's probably coming from this angle here. I would maybe bring it down a little bit, something like that, maybe half a stop. I'm really liking, the way you've lit the background planters. They are great. It really is. It really feels like it's in keeping with, these reference images here. Um, so I'm really liking that. I would try to encourage you to maybe darken this foreground um, bar element, and um, the background actually feels pretty good to me. I would just bring down the key light on her, maybe warm her up a touch with maybe like a yellow or an amber sort of tint. But otherwise, it's looking good. This one also could benefit from exposing down in general. Um, I would, um, I would bring it down by maybe 3/4 of a stop, something like that in general. Um, maybe, maybe this area here, the light source coming from the neon, maybe you could dim that down. Um, maybe it can go, um, oh, maybe it goes down. Just so it doesn't compete for your attention, because I think you want to focus on um, these guys. You want to focus on her expression. What's going on with her look? She looks kind of a bit scared. Um, but definitely on her, I would maybe try and focus the attention on their expressions in their faces. So um, bring down. I would try and bring down, you know, um, um, this foreground. Sorry, this neon elements, and then maybe even the bar. I'll bring that down. This key definitely come down and maybe bias it around so that it's reading more as a kicker. Try that. So it's coming from this side. Sorry. So it's coming down from, let's see, maybe what you need to do is probably just bring up this light source here that's hitting her, and maybe this could come down, this light that's lighting up her face, maybe that can come down a little bit too. Yeah, I would maybe try and darken her down as we get lower, again, just so that the attention is focused on this area here. Same with this, same with her, like I would try and darken her down. So that's, and also here, so that we stay focused on their faces and their kind of interaction. All right, cool. Paul, this is looking great. Again, this is great that you've got, this kind of warmth, this kind of warm light, kind of focusing our attention. We have blue, and then we have sort of the warmish yellow amber light. So our eyes are kind of focused on this here the most, I would say, in the scene. With that being said, I feel like maybe the sky is starting to compete in terms of the levels a little bit too much. And maybe you could, maybe bring it down, bring down that sky. Bring down that sky so that we kind of, our eyes are focused on this, this door opening here. And I see that there's, there's some sort of anomaly here with the shadows. I don't know whether it's a shadow, it's a reflection occlusion thing, whether it's a shadow being reflected or what, but I feel like these highlights, these warm highlights here, they could probably continue there across the water. And the other thing is that maybe I really like how this recedes, these trees recede here. That's, that's great. Maybe you could do the same here. Maybe these guys can go down a little bit more, just so you read the figure of the house a little bit more clearly against the backdrop of the trees. But otherwise, it's looking pretty good. Abishek. So I see you've put some fog in the foreground. That's looking pretty cool. But I would probably bring it down by about 2/3, because the idea about fog is that it's called a depth cue, so it gives your eye interprets depth through how hazy it is. So typically when your characters are close to camera, the fog isn't so thick, and so you probably want to take it down by about, yeah, I'd say about 2/3. Try that. Um, and just so you're reading you're reading the foreground characters. They're not being lost in the fog, but you do read a little bit of it. And then as we get towards the back, you can really get a sense of the fog happening. But otherwise, looking good. And Erin. So it looks like we've got you've brought down the okay, Erin. Next up is Erin. Next up is Erin. I see that you've brought down the global illumination in the room. So that feels like you've got the key to fill ratio happening a lot more aligned with the reference. So that's looking good. And I see that you've cropped it using thirds. So that compositionally, we're kind of focused more uh, on his face, this area here, and her face as well. So that's really good. So compositionally, it's working really well. um, in terms of comments, not much really. The only other thing I could think of is if you wanted to maybe straighten out the camera so that the verticals are, kind of straight. So here, um, you know, you've got that and then that happening. If you could, it looks like maybe tilting the camera down would straighten up these lines. So you want to straighten it up, so that it's kind of more like this. Otherwise, compositionally, it's working, and maybe a little bit, you know, um, no, I think it's looking pretty good. I think you're golden with the lighting in terms of this kind of late afternoon, early evening, soft, warm, hazy sort of light, and focusing attention on their faces, which is good. Maybe her hand feels a bit weird here. Um, maybe you could de-emphasize that. Maybe you could flag it off so that we don't read it as it kind of looks like a claw right now, and that's kind of not very pleasing. So maybe you could de-emphasize this. Yep, that's it. Thank you. And then let's see, Raghavendra. So see you've added a bluish rim light there. That's looking, that's getting some hair detail back in, which is great. You've knocked down some of the light that looks like it's a kind of rim light coming from here. So it's looking a bit more motivated. Just from the overall ambient light from the surrounds. And I like that you've kind of given more directionality to her hair by the rim and the hat too. That's looking really good. The key to fill ratio is looking a lot better. It's not as dark in the fill areas on his face and his hair. And definitely more hair detail in her hair as well. yeah, overall, just a more, um, like a more, the the images, the figures sit into the environment a lot better. You know, um, it just feels more coherent. Yeah, I think you're good. Thank you. Ubed Ubedallah Ubedallah. Sorry, I've completely got your name wrong. Um, these are, these are looking great. I see you're using Unreal Engine, which I love. I love using Unreal because it gets you um, into a really good place very quickly. Um, and I see you've got some sort of a kind of a foggy overcast setting here. Um, and that's, looking very moody and atmospheric. I would encourage you to maybe think about punching in a little bit of contrast in amongst the um, the overcast sort of lighting, that sort of very flat sort of lighting. I know it's intentional, but I'm wondering what I really like about this one is that there is a little bit of contrast here, and I really love this light. Um, I'm guessing it's some sort of light source that's either got a gobo or is it's a sort of a um, like a spotlight of some sort. So I'm really liking what you did with that. Um, and yeah, so just try introducing with each of these images some kind of um, just pick one point in the scene where you want to maybe bring up the contrast a little bit. Like with this one, the obvious one would be maybe a light source coming from, within inside here and coming out. What does it do to the environments here? Does it kind of etch out like a nice rim on the rocks and this kind of tube pipe here? And does it wash? Is it strong enough to wash over these areas here and warm it up? And I guess it's up to you as to how much how much contrast you want to bring in. But I'd encourage you to at least consider, a little bit. Yeah, I love this light. I'd say um, bring it up by, even like half a stop to a stop, just so we have, that sort of scallop shaped lights, um, focusing attention on this area here. And maybe the others can stay as they are and recede, just to get some background, foreground contrast going. And with this one here, it's feeling very moody and mysterious. Um, I'd say again, pick maybe try and think about how you would add a bit of contrast. Maybe try, maybe this door is open and then there's a light that washes out, like a warmish light that washes out like that. And so you get this, these areas here lit up. This gets lit up, and these these areas here perhaps get lit up. It's probably, unless it's blasting out, you probably won't get this far, but maybe, um, these areas here could get a little bit of contrast. So you start maybe telling a story, maybe, someone's coming out or something's happening, something to focus your eye to. I guess my main critique of these images is that it's reading quite flat, and I know that with overcast lighting, that's kind of the point, but perhaps introduced some lighting element to bring back in a little bit of contrast. But otherwise, looking really sweet. Thank you. Erin, uh, this is like very bright and exuberant. I'm really loving the way you've lit this character. And let's have a look at your reference. Yeah, so really sort of lots of purples and blues, um, pinks, and I would encourage you to maybe try bringing in this warm light here somehow as a way to make it pop, because right now the foreground character, you know, really you can tell that the environment's definitely they're in this environment, but on the other hand, um, this person feels like a little bit flat because there's no um, maybe with the exception of this this rear kicker here, um, there's no real difference between the values of the main character and the background. So it could be just a case of, you know, just introducing um, like a warmer, hotter kicker here. And that might just do it for now. Try that. See how you go, but maybe introduce a little bit of warmth again to get that sort of the color latitude into the image. So warmish light to contrast with this kind of cool cyan blue light, um, kind of like here. See how you go. Cool, looking good though. Molly. So this is this is a very atmospheric image. I really like it because it feels very integrated already. You know, obviously there's a top, there's a moonlight coming from the top. We don't see the moonlight, but that's okay because it's defining this kind of glacier iceberg thing at the back, and you can see it lighting up um, the water there. And I guess we're getting some hits here on the mermaid's knee. And I like that there's enough bounce to kind of etch out that hair detail there and there. Um, it's a really good first pass. I would maybe take a look at what's happening with her eye, because I feel like the iris and the pupil aren't showing up. Maybe it's just a pose, but take a look at that. Um, but I like the the bounce that's happening, the bounce that's happening on her face there. That's really good. Same here. Um, Maybe consider adding a little bit of bounce underneath here, because I feel like, you know, this boat here is being lit by, the reflected moonlight. But maybe you could give the same sort of attention to her and maybe that little crab dude too. Um, Maybe even a little bit of, um, the underside of her hairdo here. But otherwise, just get some more here, some more here in the crab dude. Um, but it's looking pretty good out of the box there for me. Maybe reduce the contrast in the back, either reduce it a little bit more, so introduce more fog. Yeah, I would maybe make it even a little bit less contrasty by introducing the fog, just so the foreground characters pop a little bit more, and maybe even reduce some of these foreground fog here. I mean, I actually really like um, the sort of the fog or the level of contrast in these foreground characters, but maybe just a tiny bit, just make them a little bit more contrasty. Um, but all in all, it's looking really good. All right, so that's it for this one. I'm going to do part two because I know there's maybe two or three more people. I'll follow up later on today, but overall, it's looking